Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devin. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or go to the website neverafacenetwork.com. On this episode, we have on Keeth Apgar from the band Harmonica Pocket. We talked about life in the Pacific Northwest, connecting with nature, playing music for kids, being inspired by how kids view the world, life with the son, going from preschool teacher to musician, loving the craft of writing songs, and embracing your mistakes as a parent. Just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad.
What's it like having Keith spelled in the not quote-unquote traditional way of Keith?
Well, I answer to both. I answer to Keith or Keeth. You can call me both. You know, it's funny. People change their names a lot. And I changed my name from Keith to Keith.
Okay.
It's kind of a pseudonym that I use as a writer.
Okay.
So the root of my name, Keith, is as a person who comes from the woods. It's like a man of the woods. And that's the name that they gave me, you know, and I'm named after my grandfather. My middle name is Monta. I'm named after my great-grandfather, too, whose name was Monta. His whole life, everyone called him Monta. After he died, we found out that wasn't actually his name, but that was after me and my dad were both named after him. His name is actually Montalian, and it's an unusual name that I've never, I did some snooping around. I couldn't find any other references to it. Kind of sounds like mountain lion in Italian or something. Yeah. We're not Italian. Anyway, so I'm answering your question about my name and how to pronounce it. When I was a little kid, my dad called me Keith with the teeth because I had like these really big kind of buck teeth,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some pictures of me and it's just like, oh yeah. Sometimes I show them to kids. I'm like, hey, check me out, gets better. So he called me Keith with the teeth. When I started writing songs, that was one of the songs I wrote, just called Keith with the Teeth. And it was kind of one of my first kid songs. I didn't know I was writing a kid song, but anyway, so in that song title, I spelled Keith like teeth. And so that was kind of the beginning of that. And then when I started registering my music, the copyrights and all that stuff, I spelled my writer's name is Keeth. And so that's how I use it out in the public.
Nice. That's awesome. And I doubt you've got much competition for that name. And hey, I'm going to go promote. I'm Keith spelled this way. Sorry, we already got one. I doubt is a conversation you hear very often.
Yeah. I mean, there's some more of us, but yeah.
That's all. I think Devin, I looked it up once. It means perfect poet or something like that.
Cool.
And that's a lot to live up to. Man from the woods. Yeah, I can be that. But you're a perfect poet. And I'm like, can you take away the word perfect? Can you just say poet, someone who enjoys words?
Well, heck, here we are in the Imperfect Dads podcast. So, you just got to work with what they give you. Some things we choose and a lot they give us.
Yes. That's when my parents named me, they're like, you know what? In about 34 years from now, there's going to be a thing called podcasts and he's going to be one of them.
Right.
What area of the country do you live in?
So I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I live on a tiny island that nobody's ever heard of. And I don't say that to be mysterious, but, not many people have heard of it. Even the people on the next island, which is a lot bigger. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Marrowstone. And they're like, where? And I'm like, yo, we live 3 miles away from each other as the crow flies.
Yeah.
So I live in the Pacific Northwest. It's spring out here. It's super dark. It's 100% chance of rain today.
Okay.
But it's a really beautiful place. A lot of big trees and beautiful wildlife. The other day there was 6 deer out my window and 2 out the front window. So it's a lot of wildlife, owls and eagles and slugs and salamanders, and it's a pretty magical place.
That's cool. We live out in Denver area, and being out west and being outside just feels different. Before we lived in Nashville, and I'm originally from Indiana. And being outside was good, but being out west, Pacific Northwest, all of this feels drastically different I don't know why it feels so different to me, but being out in nature out here is not the same as it was in the South or the Midwest.
Yeah. The mountains are just bigger. One thing the Rockies are pretty tall.
Yeah.
when you approach them from the east, as you're moving to Denver, from the east, you see them rise on the horizon, and you really get to sense how big and grandiose they are. In the Pacific Northwest, you can look at the mountains from sea level, and so it's just epic. Like you can look from
Yeah.
sea level up to 14,000 feet, and so the mountains are just they are stunning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty
Whereas
cool.
Yeah, whereas like I'm already starting at like 5,280. I forget what the mile high marker for Denver is, but like, yeah, my start that 5,000 feet to climb is like, or to look up is, yeah, that's cool. That I wouldn't have thought of it before. That makes a lot of sense though.
You got to come out.
I like love every band from like Portland and Seattle. So like I know I somewhat belong or would belong in the Pacific Northwest as well. So I need to spend. I remember for the Decemberists, whenever they did The King is Dead, I think that on that tour they did an audio intro in which the mayor of Portland at the time like read like a script for them about like walking through the Pacific Northwest and like set the tone for the entire show. I remember
Okay.
sitting there being like, I need to visit at some point. So I'm still working on doing longer visits up there. Have you always lived up there, or how'd you end up in the Pacific Northwest?
No, I haven't. I grew up in New York.
Okay.
I'm kind of from the opposite, almost opposite of this place. I'm from the suburbs. So
Hmm.
I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and the first suburb in the history of suburbs, in the modern era, it was on Long Island. And if you look at the back cover of Billy Joel's record, who's another Long Island famous, Long Island songwriter. Well, I'm not putting myself in the group of famous Long Island songwriters. I'm just saying that there's a lot of
You're given a frame of reference.
Twisted Sister, Mariah Carey, Billy Joel. But on the back of his record, Iron Curtain, I think it is, there's a picture, an aerial shot of a suburb. And I think it's Levittown.
Hmm.
But it's that's like where the first suburbs are, like back after the World War II. And so I'm from that place, where it's safer to get in a car and cross a parking lot than to walk it on foot.
Yep.
There's a lot of plants, but they're all ornamentals. I
Yeah.
never saw anybody growing vegetables in their garden, in my neighborhoods or, driving around. So it's a very different place. But yeah, I'm from New York, and I moved to the Northwest because I just wanted to get, I wanted to get off the East Coast.
Yeah.
But I had a good friend who was living in Seattle. We were really close, and he kidnapped me after college, and he's like, "Come on, you're coming out," and
Yeah.
never looked back.
Yeah. I get that vibe for the Pacific Northwest, or it feels that way just living out here in Denver of once you get out here, once you get like where you can actually be around nature a little bit more, it's just so different than like the big city life that it is like, I feel like it's a unique level of like centering that you can do whenever you're in nature that you just can't do whenever you're in the suburbs of a massive city like New York.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, I don't know if you go to the ocean and you look at the horizon, it helps me open up my thought. Like I think
Hmm.
differently. And then I feel differently inside. And like,
Yeah.
being in the trees, like walking through the trees, even on a rainy day like this, or put on some rain gear, or, when the sun's coming through and hitting the trunks of the trees,
Yeah.
it's magical. I think it does change, it informs our thoughts. It informs certainly the music that I've written and created and stuff.
Yeah. I'll do that sometimes if I go like on a walk out here at night. Like, I mean, I'm in like 10 miles south of Denver. I'm in Denver suburbs. And like, yeah, the stars are just freaking bright out here. Like, cause
Yeah.
I know for me, like I'm just physically closer and everything. But like, I'll like go on a walk at like 9 p.m. sometimes and like just look around and be like, oh, there are stars and these are beautiful and gorgeous. And I know like, I've done like my wife and I did the Grand Canyon once, in which we stayed like in an Airstream trailer, like 30 miles outside the Grand Canyon. And that sky at night is like
Wow.
it's almost like overwhelming how bright it is. And like, I think one thing that's always fascinating about nature and life is whenever you find those moments where you're like, this is here constantly. Like these stars are always
Right.
here. And
Right.
like, but I just moved my settings and surroundings and now I'm aware of what beauty is around me in a way that my day to day life makes it hard to be in tune with.
Definitely. I know. And I wonder about the stars we can't see during the day, because
Yeah.
I'm not the scientist that really gets all the math and the geometry of this, but like, I think we only see half of the sky, at night, or
Mhm.
less, depending on our level of insomnia, willingness to
That's right.
stay up late. But what are the constellations during the day that we're missing, And what would their names be? And what were their myths and their stories be over the centuries?
Yeah. I think nature has the ability to make you feel small in the way that it's healthy to feel small. To be like, oh, this stuff is a lot bigger than me. That's good to be aware. Like, and that's reality. Like, yeah, that sky is bigger than you. This amount of stars are more than you. And like, just be like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I am small in a healthy way to
Yeah.
be small.
Well, that reminds me of a story. The first time, so my son was born in February. And so, a few days, he was born at home. We did a home birth. So for a few days, we just were nested at home. And then
Yeah.
I remember the first day I took him outside. He was about 5 days old. And, I had him in my arms and, and I went out and he was awake. He's kind of pointed up at the sky. And I was like, Montana, that's the sky, And he was looking up and he just goes, it's just it was it seemed like it was overwhelming, like
Yeah.
he'd just been in the womb and now he's come out and he's using his eyes. And then it was cannot compute, and he just shut down for a little bit and took a nap, So, that the sky is big,
It is.
and we're so normalized to these things, like
Mhm.
we've seen them our whole lives, decades. And so we're like, oh yeah, it's the sky. Yeah, whatever. It's the
Yeah.
stars. Oh, whatever. But
Of
it's
course.
really magical. So when we can stop and see that beauty, right?
Yeah.
Make the
Yeah.
hair stand up and that's one cool thing about being a dad or just hanging out with kids, because they're experiencing certain things for the first
Mhm.
time and you're with them witnessing this,
Yeah.
it can be pretty moving.
It is. I think it just makes you, to me, like, yeah, that stuff is always there. Like, the sky's always beautiful. There's always immense detail to plant life. Like, that you live in an ecosystem. So there's life around you constantly. And I think like a kid just makes me realize how much life that's around me I ignore because I have an efficiency monster that lives inside me that would love to get stuff done and assumes by getting stuff done, I'm doing something that's a greater good. But also, I think that balance of being mentally present to the moment you're in, but also making sure like you're getting stuff done. You've got food in the fridge to make later. That you have enough money to pay for your mortgage. Like that balance, I think your kids are always trying to pull you into like that. But be here, and you're like, I got to go work a shift. I got to go do something so we can eat those. So that's the real tension I feel like you always hold as a parent is I want to be present for every moment, but also need to be able to provide so that these moments can happen at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
That's it. You said it.
yeah, right. How old is your son now?
He just turned 15.
Dude, what's it like to have a 15-year-old?
Man, don't believe anything people say about teenagers because it
Okay.
might not be true.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have stereotypes, sometimes for good reason.
Mhm.
And not gonna lie, hey, it's a huge, puberty is a huge hormonal shift for humans,
Mhm.
And so that stuff is real and it's happening. And, he's on a physical level, outgrowing pants, in 3 months is all right, well, we'll get rid of that
Dude.
last 4 pairs of pants we just got you and get some more.
Yeah.
So our friends are getting some sweet hand-me-downs. But, it's pretty cool because he's doing some new things. One thing that's interesting to watch your child grow and grow with them too, is that I find that I have certain memories that come up of my own life from these different
Mhm.
life stages, different developmental stages and stuff. So now I'm entering this whole new crop of memories that it's almost like looking through a photo album where until you see the picture, memory is I don't have access to it. And then I go, oh yeah, that kind of stuff. So this new stage of things are happening. He's starting to drive and, just learning to drive a car.
Mhm.
He's also, by the way, before he's even been on the highway, on the road in a car, he's learning to fly airplanes. So
What?
there's,
Wait, what?
yeah, yeah, I know. There's this unique program in our community, and
That's awesome.
yeah, it's mentored, it's held really well, and it's a youth aero program, and they teach youth, boys and girls, how to maintain aircraft, how to work on things, paint them, repair them, do oil change, everything. And then they also have a ground school. And so they teach them about aerodynamics and all sorts of what you need to know to navigate and fly. And then they once a week they get taken up with a flight instructor, and they fly. They have their hands on the controls. And so he's been doing that for I think 2 years, about maybe 2 or 3 years now.
That's freaking cool. Like,
Yeah,
also, it just made me think you don't have a road to the island you live on. You just have you have a landing pad. So that
yeah. Not that remote. No, we got a bridge.
no, okay, that's good. That's good. You do have internet there, so I've assumed it wasn't
Yeah.
that remote.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have an alternative little scene going on here. But what I'll say is, like, when we think of a 15-year-old or even a 14-year-old, we don't think of them as mature enough to fly an airplane, right? Like
Mhm.
that's a stereotype or a generalization we can make. And, hey, I'm not saying it's for everybody, right? Like there's different kids, people are different. We're all different. But when people talk about teenagers and stuff. I think that teenagers in general get a bad reputation, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to them. And so I work with a lot of kids, a lot of youth of different ages, and so I've met some really rad, some awesome teenagers who are doing cool stuff musically, artists. People who are doing programs like this, kids who
Mhm.
sail. I live in a big sailing community,
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
yeah,
That's awesome. I think I've never been one with any of my kids. I have 3 kids. So I have a 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son. I always want to talk to them like they're adults or like that they can comprehend what I'm saying. Like, I think you always try to figure out, so like, what's their ability to comprehend. You change your messaging to like, you tell them a story, whatever, in a way in which they can conceptualize it, of course. How I talk to a 10-year-old and 4-year-old is going to be different just based on brain development. But, like, I think I'll be fascinated to know what I'm like whenever my kids are all teenagers, because I hope I still talk to them like, "Hey, I know you're smart and I know that you understand this stuff. So let's talk about this," as opposed to constantly shielding, constantly hiding, and assuming that by protecting them, I'm allowing them to grow. I think that balance is also, how do you protect your
yeah.
kid from the world, but also expose them to the world, is one that I don't know if anyone ever feels like they do correctly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's up to your family culture. And
Yeah, it
when
is.
we're in this parenting role, and we're fathers, and in partnership or however we're raising our kids, we
Mhm,
get to create that culture in our family. And so, sometimes, I mean, I remember, don't remember as a kid. I was as a teenager when I was really mad at my parents,
mhm.
and I was like, when I'm a parent, I'm never gonna do these whatever things. I have no idea what they are. I wish I took notes on my anger, my
That's
teen
true.
angst.
Yes.
But I remember very clearly having that thought when I was just
Yeah.
really, really frustrated, and like, where my parents were
Mhm.
probably setting limits that I didn't agree with. So yeah, we get to kind of make it up. And I don't think that there's wrong answers when, any wrong way to do it. I think we're all doing our best. I mean, if you're doing your best, and we
Yeah.
make mistakes. I mean, I think that my son is like, he is probably he is the easiest person on the planet for me to apologize to, when I do make a mistake, to acknowledge, because it's like, I want to model what that's like. I don't want to model, well, here we are. I mean, this is perfect. We're on the imperfect dads. It's like, dude, we're
Yeah.
gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the mistakes. It's like how we recover from them, how we respond to the mistakes. Or if I feel someone has done me wrong or whatever, it's like, all right, how are we gonna repair this and
Yeah.
restore our connection, rather than like, I'm gonna live a perfect life, or I'm gonna parent perfectly and
Yeah.
never make a single mistake, and I'll have the perfect kid, and it'll be a fairy tale.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think, like, to me, what that teaches your kid is a lot of humanity, because I think you will, that conflict, that dissonance is something you will experience for the rest of your life, of like, hey, this person didn't follow through, I didn't follow through. And now how do we repair it? I think is probably really a great way to put it. And teaching someone like, hey, people are going to make mistakes, and community is how you guys figure out how to repair it together. It's like, that's like,
Right.
that's real life. That's better
Yeah.
than, hey, how about you double down? How about you double down on your answer? How about you double down on your anger? It's like, no, that's not going to lead to community. And I think it's very easy to isolate yourself, build your own world, and build your own reality. And if I can not, and if I am exhibiting that for my kids. That's not the type of dad I want to be, of create your world, create your reality, live in it. And it's like, but other people are there too, include them, be part of
Yeah.
community, all this stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's a tricky job, man. And there's
It
no
is.
there's no manual, there's no training, there's very few models of like
Yeah.
who's doing it well. Ask any boy or man about their dad and you'll get you'll get some juicy story. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty loaded, archetypal kind of relationship that we're in.
Yeah. Was it so you just said it is like a emphasis of yours to make sure to apologize and have that honest of a conversation with your son. What did that Was that hard for you to get into that mindset? Because that's different than what like a lot of us were raised with. A lot of us were raised with dads who never apologized, said, do it my way or else and stuff like that. I think people our age are much more willing to be like, that wasn't the right move. This recalibrate. Was it natural for you to get into a stance of, oh, hey, I didn't do that right. Let's talk about it. Let's readjust.
No, it wasn't hard because I just want to be, I just want to model what it's like to be, and I don't want to sound like I do it right all the time.
Mhm.
But I want to be the best model I can for my son so that he grows up to be a good man. That's like my main job right now.
Mhm.
And so that's one way that I want to do that is to just, try to model those things, even if it's a little hard or it's awkward or whatever, but it's usually not, with him. With other people, it can be, it's like, well, I should do this. And so, then I, might have to even preload the conversation like what am I gonna acknowledge and how am I gonna do this? Like I have to think it rather than just feel it and be like, man.
Yeah.
So it's a really special relationship. And I think that, we are probably, I mean, just from talking with you for, 20 minutes or whatever, we're part of this new generation of dads, and it's really cool to see fathers. My day job is writing and performing for kids
Mhm.
and families. And so, it's usually moms and their kids there. That's kind of the biggest group, you
Yeah.
know. But there's a lot of dads who show up. And sometimes I call out the dads like, hey, if you're dad, raise your hand. And, there's always some dads there. So seeing fathers like carrying their babies, either with the baby carrier or on their
Mhm.
shoulders or just having that physical connection
Yeah.
between father and the child, I think that's really huge. And I think the father's role is really underrated in our culture. Check this out. I mean,
Yeah.
I have this. I just finished this book last night. Hopefully, my camera's not reversed. Does that read okay, or is it
What's
reversed?
it, of boys and men? Is that what it
Yeah,
says?
it's called The
Yes.
Boys and Men. Is my text
Yeah.
backwards or something? Sorry about that.
No, I
This
can
is
read.
a
I
really.
good.
It's a cool book. It's called Of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves, and he just makes the case statistically for like why it's hard for boys, to grow up in
Yeah.
today's age. But I like to see that new culture and just be a part of it and shaping like, hey, like it doesn't have to be how it was when we were kids. You know, and so, yeah, like talk to a lot of, you know, young men who either want to be a dad or are thinking about it or afraid to be fathers. And some of them I'm like, you should be a dad because you're an amazing person. And like
Mhm.
you get to spend time with this and help shape this human and help make the world a better. Sounds idealistic, but that's how it works. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I think
culture.
yes. I think around culture also. I think like Um, for the longest time, I think what was told of men was like how you show your love the best is what job you work, what financial gains that you can create, basically. And also, honestly, there's a lot of stability that can come from what money you have. Like, there's a lot of benefit of having a lot of money. I'm not going to act like that's not true. I would like to think that the conversation that's being held now is what other ways can my love show itself? What other ways can my love be present? And in what ways can that love be welcomed? Because even something as simple as like changing a diaper. Generations ago, men never changed diaper. Men didn't hold their kids as much. They didn't do skin to skin. I did skin to skin with all three of my kids. Most dads
Yeah.
I know did skin to skin with their newborns. To be like my physical presence, my physical existence, my tone of voice is a way I can show and teach you love. And I think watching that definition be changed is one of my favorite things. To watch men realize that their love has a purpose and has beauty to it is like it excites me on a way that I feel like the English language fails me.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think you did say it well, and it's changing, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah, and it's sometimes sad, or I've been disappointed sometimes with elders,
Mhm.
my male elders in my life when they can't open up or something like
Of
that.
course.
And then I realized, okay, well, there's like a cultural, like a historic relativity we have to consider because
There
they
is.
were raised at a different time, and
Mhm.
like, you know, I didn't have this when I was a kid, but my dad talks about like his his parents saying things like, children are to be seen and not heard, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Some of these old idioms and stuff that yeah, that our fathers were raised by. And so um yeah, so there's some sadness there for me too that
There's.
like, that they didn't get to experience some of this stuff with, with their children and stuff.
Yeah, and I think, like, for that example, I think is a really fascinating one because, like, I bet your dad, I'm gonna speak for him, he may have not known how to change that reality for himself, but he sure as hell made sure to change it for you. He made sure he opened the door for you to make sure to walk into the room in which that wasn't reality. That doesn't mean that he knew how to go through that door himself. And I find that to be a fascinating testament of love also, of I know you I would never want you to feel the way that I felt, but also that doesn't mean I'm not, I still don't, your dad still carries that though. And to watch him change that generational, whatever you want to call it, is like so cool. And I feel like should be honored or talked about, you know?
Yeah. No, definitely. My father he's still alive, fortunately. I could still call him.
Yeah.
And I do call him. I'm like, "Hey dad, I need to talk to you about this,"
Yeah.
and it's really beautiful to have that at this point in my life. But he gave me a great childhood. My parents gave me a great and magical childhood, and I think that that's one reason why I enjoy children. I
Hmm.
think that our life story and our experiences definitely inform our path and how our gifts unfold in our lives. My childhood was magical. I remember so many beautiful things, magical things through the frosted glass of memory that you can see, not see. And yeah, my dad gave a lot of time. He worked really hard at a job. He was athletic director at a school.
Cool. Yeah.
So he's a big sports guy. And so he introduced me to sports, and he drove. I didn't realize this at the time. I actually wrote my dad a letter a couple years ago, and I was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
I made like it took me a long time to write this letter, but I wrote just thank you for all this stuff. And I just tried to name it, try to be very specific and like, um, because I wanted him to hear that. And I don't feel like we do that as kids. And now in my role, it's like, I try to teach my son and his friends, to be like, hey, what do you say when someone gives you a ride somewhere? What do you
Yeah.
say when somebody buys you some pizza or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Uh, thank you. I'm like, I'm not just doing it so I can be thanked. I'm like, I want you to learn this stuff,
Yeah.
because it took me a long time to learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that our dad, the way that, our relationship with our own dads, I don't know, does it inform the way that you are
Mhm.
in your life? How you
Yeah.
are a dad?
Yep. Absolutely does. Yeah. And I think, like, as you were hinting at earlier, also, like, there's a fascination of like your kid gets older, they do learn how to drive and stuff like that. And it does make you be like, what was my driving experience like with my dad? What was like, and then it's like another way for you to reconnect with your dad as well. And like, I have three kids. I'm the youngest three. So like, there's similarities of that. If whenever I talk to my parents, it is kind of like, because you guys did this. What was your experience? Like I think it can open up doors to curiosity about your parents' experience. And I hope that people have that the relationship is healthy enough in which they can look at their parents and be like, hey, you did this too. What was it like for you? Like devoid of like, I'm the end product of what happened. Like, what was that like for you? And like, how did you handle your stress? How did you handle your life basically? Cause we're doing a similar thing, but in very different worlds.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good opportunity to reflect and grow, change, make
Yeah.
some changes.
Mhm. Yep. Tell me about like kids music. How'd you get involved with kids music, or what made you, besides like what you kind of hinted at a little bit, what made you want to start doing kids music?
Well, it was a true accident. When we're little kids, they're like, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like that was a big thing when I was a kid, in the 80s. And it was like, what I want to be, I want to be some of my responses, my mom told me, she's like, when she asked me that, I said I wanted to be a cow one day.
Okay. Yeah. Did you succeed? Did you ever become a cow?
I love milk and cheese, but no, I'm
Okay.
not a cow. Another time I said I want to be a rock, which, I don't
Mm.
remember these things, but that's a pretty Zen answer, kind of a
That is.
Buddhist
That is. Yeah.
response for 3-year-old. But, it's like astronaut, fireman, things like that.
Yeah.
I did not, think I was going to grow up and be a musician by any means. I always liked playing music. When I was a teenager, I started playing music and haven't stopped. I just kind of followed my path, really. I was playing I write songs. I love songs. That's kind of what I've always done. When I first started playing guitar, I started writing songs, and I don't really know why. Um, I think some of my friends, like I had still have this great group of guys that I played music with, and we're still, they're hilarious. We keep each other laughing over a text thread these days.
That's awesome.
Actually, I had a dream about them last night. Oh my gosh, we were
Really?
setting up.
That's fun. Yeah.
We were setting up amps. One of my friends, Mike, had these huge amps. I was like, dude, these are enormous. Someone pulled out a mic stand, and it was like a big rusty tripod.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway.
Why not? Why not?
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I've always loved songs, and I wrote them, and then I was performing them in a band and would do some shows. The band was the Harmonica Pocket, it still is. But I was doing kind of grown-up music. And on this little island where I live, we have a big garden. And so I was getting a job done. So I walked to my neighbor's house and I asked to borrow a tool to do this job. And she said, oh, Keith, I'm having tea with a neighbor. Come on in, And I was like, in my mind, I'm going, man, I just want to get the rake. I want to go home and get this job. So I come in, I sit down, I want a cup of tea. Okay, sure. I'll have some tea. And I was having tea suddenly with 3 women, and one of them was the director of a preschool. And she said, oh, I hear you're a musician. I just had a cancellation. You want to come do this gig? And she's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like, how much?
Yeah. Hold on.
And so it was, this was in 2005. And so I came home and with my rake, and with my borrowed rake, and I told my partner, my wife, who was performing with me at the time, I said, hey, we got a show. We got to go to this preschool. And so we made this show, and it was a 60-minute show. We didn't know what we're doing, but we just created some cool stuff. She brought dance, hula hoop, guitar. I have some non-Western music, so I brought like a mbira, like thumb piano from Shona, Zimbabwe. I brought didgeridoo. So we just like put together this thing. And at the end of the 60 minutes, we said goodbye and shook hands and stuff. And the director came up. She said, that was amazing. You guys the kids have never sat still, for 60 minutes. And we were like, really? Like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just being us and trying to create something fun and engaging. And so that's where this idea, kind of a light bulb or whatever that expression is, illuminated. I'm horrible with idioms. I prefer to make up my own. But
there you go. I like it.
This we're like, oh, this could be something. And so at that point we started building this kids show, and then needed a kids album. So I was like, all right, what songs do I have? Keith with the Teeth was one of them, Another one was Spiders in My Breakfast, which was not written intending to be a kid's song, but it is. So anyway, that's how it happened. It was an accident, and I love that about my life is, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And it's like, no, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to do something else. And so just being able to listen to what you're being asked to do by the world or people around you, and, and just embracing that. I think that's kind of been my path.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think honestly, that's how it normally works, is like, how does anyone end up in the career they end up in? Most people, it's like someone started paying me to do this. Someone thought I might be good at this. And I said yes. And now I'm here. I think whenever I was in college, I was like, oh, here's my path. Here's my career. Here's what I get to. And now how'd you end up in kids music? Someone asked you to do it once and you thought it was fun. And then you kept saying yes to things and exploring it. And here you are now, and it's your career.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes so much sense to hear you say that. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, Devin. Right. Like things just happen. But like when we're kids, and, I believe that we are constantly learning, again, people, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, oh, yeah, well, I want to be an astronaut or whatever. Well, guess
Yeah.
what? There's only like 10 astronauts right now. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people do pick a path and follow it, especially like where you go to these higher levels of education,
Yes.
law and doctoral type stuff.
Mhm.
But I think, yeah, probably for most of us, it's like, here I am, I'm in this line of work. Here's what my life looks like right now. And sometimes we can romanticize, artists or musicians or people that, are in the public eye who you know, and it's like, we're no different. We're just
Yeah.
people who have like kind of like just floated through life and here I am.
Yep. I think
Hopefully you're happy with your life.
hopefully, right? Yeah, or find enjoying it. I think that was Justin Roberts' story also was, yeah, he was like working at a pre-K, had recorded some songs that were kid focused. And one of his friends were like, oh, you got to record these. So then he did. And now here he
Yeah.
is 20 years later, still
Yeah.
recording kids' music. But it's just because he was living his life, doing some stuff, being creative, being curious. And someone said, I think people would actually really love this if you shared this. And like, once again, just going to overemphasize community and the importance of it. You need people in your life to look at you and be like, hey, you're doing some beautiful things here, and I want to make sure you're sharing it. And that's why I think, well, it's why I'm trying to emphasize to my kids so much, like, hey, be around community, be around people, because you don't know how someone might see into your life in a way that then projects you into who you're supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's real. And I love what Justin does. Like,
Yeah.
I love his songs. He's one of my favorite kid songwriters. Yeah. I'm a fan.
Yeah. What's like what's like one of your favorite things about like performing for kids? Like that energy is so unique and so different than like performing for adults. What's one thing that like you feel like is unique to the experience of performing for children?
I mean, kids are open and ready to have a good time.
Yeah.
If you're in more of like a 21 and up environment, like a bar, club, or something like that, people are there. Usually, I mean, there's definitely venues where it's a music venue, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But people are there. They've taken time to get dressed up.
Hmm.
Some of them are there to like get phone numbers and like, flirt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. So there's different needs sometimes, but with kids, it's like the need is in the moment. They're very present and they're just
Yeah.
open and they're ready. They're ready for a good time. If
Hmm.
I'm like, like let's everybody come into this little spot on the carpet and let's jump and try and bump our head on a cloud, they're just
Yeah.
like, man, and like, you know what I mean? Like they just go for it and they're like, this is
Yeah.
great. And then you say, stop. And they just like, stop,
Yeah.
and so it's like, it's very playful. And so
Yes.
I really love stepping back into that world and being, I mean, I don't think of myself as a Pied Piper, but I have an instrument in my hand. And so that is something that will get attention. If you
Hmm.
ever, do you play music at all? Do you
I
play
do. Yeah.
music?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I've got, let's see, do I have the guitar back there still?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
see guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. I play guitar, some mandolin, some bass, and I can fake piano as well.
Nice. You read from a fake book?
Yeah, yeah. It's I've just listened to a lot of Death Cab for Cutie, and they have the simplest piano parts ever. So that's
Cool.
mostly what I'm playing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Ben Gibbard and his songs too.
Yep.
But like, well, like you probably plucked an instrument for like one of your babies, right?
Yep.
And they respond to the
Yeah.
sound. And so
Yeah.
when we fill the room with sound, it really perks up people's ears. Yesterday I was doing an unplugged. I do a monthly thing in my hometown, unplugged, and it's really fun. It's very
Mhm.
improvised and loose and yeah, super super playful. And so I was
Yeah,
just
that's
tuning
fun.
up I'm just tuning up my instruments and I mean, literally like plucking two strings, like
Yeah.
ding, ding, and
Huh?
like I see the kids look up, and it's still 15 minutes before gonna start, but music fills the spaces, and so people really respond. So it's just really fun to step into that world, to be playful with them and to make stuff up. One thing that I do at some of my shows when the audience is close enough, if I'm on a stage and there's monitors and things like that going on where you're separated, it's harder to
Yeah.
do. But I always like to be on the same level
Yeah.
as the all ages audiences
Yeah.
because we can get closer and they can see my pedal board and what I'm doing with my loops and stuff.
Hmm.
And some
Yeah.
of them get curious about that. But So I like to ask questions of the kids, either ask them like ridiculous questions or just something really normal, like
Yeah.
what rhymes with for, and then we just start responding and creating in the moment, like improvising lyrics. Yesterday, my closing tune was a Beatles song. I played Yellow Submarine. And so I was
Nice.
like, what color should the submarine be? And they're like, purple. And it's like, we all live in a purple,
Yeah, that
they're just
works.
ready
Yeah.
to go. They're primed and ready. They're not too cool yet, so it's really fun.
Yeah. That is.
Really fun to play for kids.
I don't know if you've ever listened to Frank Turner before, but he's
I
like
don't know.
he's very like when you go see him, he's very like communal. Everyone sings songs and stuff. And like he did one song, and like it was like the first song of his encore, and he was like, "All right, guys, I'm gonna ask all of you to jump for this bridge. And I know some of you think you're too cool. I know some of you don't want to do it, but I've just been running around on the stage for 90 minutes, and I just want you to jump for 1 minute only. And you guys are
Yes.
gonna love it. It's gonna be great. And if you think you're too cool for it, I think the words he said were, if you think you're too cool to do this, you're at my show right now on a Wednesday night. You probably aren't that cool of a person anyway. So come on, let's start jumping. Let's do it." But like, you don't have to work that hard to get, like, I've played guitar for my son's like pre-K class before. And yeah,
Okay.
like you pull out that guitar and everyone's just like, what is this? Like, it doesn't take much to impress. And like the simplicity of a child's interest is hard to be reminded of. Cause I'm trying to think of like, what's something impressive I can play? And they just want to hear like even a palm muted strum. They're like, whoa, what did you tune your guitar? And yeah, they're like, whoa, how do you do this? So like, to go from my mind, which is like over analytical, wants purpose and meaning to everything, just to be like, oh, did you make a noise? That's
Yeah,
fun.
right. Exactly. You made a noise. Wow. Yeah.
That's
And I
cool.
mean, the other level of it and I think kids music can get a bad reputation sometimes because people who aren't familiar with it, if you haven't listened to like some newer kids music in the last 10 or 15 years or something, if you grew up with, I don't want to talk trash about anybody because I
No,
respect
of course. Yeah.
I respect my elders,
Mhm.
but it's just changed. The culture
Yeah.
of music kids music has changed, just like the culture of children's literature,
Mhm.
picture books has changed. It's like a
Yeah.
golden era. Is
Yeah.
literally there's something for everybody, whatever you like. If you're into rock, hip hop, folk, whatever you're into, there's something there for you.
I do think that like the amount of stories that are told through children's music now is greater than it used to be. I think there's more depth to it. I think there's like yeah, because whenever I was a kid, I hated kids' music, but also I was an elitist punk and still am. But like, yeah, like the amount of like storytelling, like Justin Roberts as an easy example that he does, like on his last album, Fire Breathing Dragon, about talking about like a 2-year-old, and whenever he gets mad and doesn't get his way, his brother's like, oh, he's a fire breathing dragon. And then his mom is like, no, this is just hurt and sadness that he doesn't know how to express. So like, be more kind to your brother. And like that whole story is accurate, honest, and from a child's point of view, and also shows like a response, shows a parent who's present enough to help guide their child through what their other child is feeling. And I'm like, that's a freaking good story. Like that's a solid story of existence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the story level of it, right? The
Yes.
the literal message of the story as it unfolds in a linear
Yeah.
way, right? And then,
Yeah.
like just to use Justin Roberts as an example, like the music, his band sounds great, They have cool arrangements. He
Yeah.
has, he writes songs with bridges, he writes songs with cool endings and cool musical syncopations and stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's like, the adult aesthetics, applied, it's like, it's not just because it's kids music, we're not going to cut corners and just play some junk. I think a lot of us are trying to like share quality music,
Mhm.
well written songs, well played, ensembles and stuff. The drummer's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that sometimes kids music gets dismissed, especially by people who haven't really stepped in and checked it out. Like there's some really cool stuff. There's some really cool artists out there. And it's super diverse, man. It's crazy diverse.
Yeah. It is. How I end every episode is ask every guest a series of 5 questions. So the first question is, did you have any backup names for your son? Did you have any names that you almost named him?
We thought that, well, we didn't know if we were having a boy or girl. So
Hmm.
we kind of kept it the old style mystery. And so like what I remember is we had this sound, like this Z sound, zzz, and like I really liked that sound. And like I would go up to my wife's belly and be zzz, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But so
Yeah.
like we were looking for these Z sounds like Ziggy and Azalea and things like that. And yeah, but then when he was born, he wasn't breathing right away. And so the midwife she said, talk to him, he knows your voices, talk to him.
Yeah.
And so I just said, that's when I said, at that point, I had known that I had a son for about 20 seconds,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I said, Montana, Montana, you got to breathe, wake up. I just said that name. That was
Yeah.
one of the names that we had.
Yeah.
And it just came out. And I was like, okay, I just named our son. Sorry,
My bad. I didn't want to make that. We're cool with this, right?
But he took his breath and it was like, whew. But the funny thing is, his name is Montana Apgar. Montana is that root of my middle name, Monta. So we kind of took that route. We figured, hey, since my name and my dad's name were tweaked and not exactly, so he's named after his great grandfather, but we
That's so
twisted,
cool.
we twisted it again.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Next question. Do you have like a favorite TV, movie, or like book dad? Or like whenever I say that, a favorite implies that you like them. Whenever I say that, is there like a father figure that's in like culture that you think of specifically?
Yeah. I don't watch a lot of television and movies and things like that.
Yeah.
I do like to read. I've been reading more nonfiction
Okay.
recently. But who comes to mind is who I'm gonna go with is Mandalorian.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
He like comes into caring for Baby Yoda, for Grogu,
Yeah.
and he does some really beautiful things. I mean, he risks all his life and, multiple times
Hmm.
he saves him multiple times in very dramatic Hollywood ways. But he also, he has this, so Mandalorian, he has this, his creed, his like religion is basically like, he can't show his face to another
Yeah.
not human, to another living creature. And so he doesn't do that through the whole series. But then at the end, when he's saying goodbye to, shoot, spoiler alert.
No, how dare you
Spoiler
spoil
alert!
a show that's been out for years?
All right, thanks, dude. So he takes off his helmet to connect with Baby Yoda before they
Yeah.
go. And it's like that's a really sweet moment where he gives up his philosophy and his view to connect with this, a foster child or a son.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically a child,
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I also love that in shows whenever, if they've done that type of world building where like, what Mando's like value system is basically. And then to watch him basically go against what his normal is for the sake of giving is just, or to reveal himself, for him to see the importance of revealing a part of himself he shuts off to the rest of the world to someone that he loves. Is like whenever you watch that journey, because that's like a 2 or 3 year journey for him to be like, you get to know this side of me. It's like, that's beautiful, and that's good character work. Good job, guys.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, untraditional dad, and it's like a alternative family model, which I absolutely support.
Yeah. Next question. What's like a go-to replacement curse word for you? Like, what do you say instead of saying the bad word?
Well, I guess out myself off mic. I definitely can drop some bombs. I'm a New Yorker, so it's part
Dude, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yep.
of our culture. Dang is a good one. I like dang.
Mm-hmm.
Fiddlesticks is kind of funny. I think the more
Fiddlesticks.
ridiculous you can get is the better.
Yeah.
And making things up. Like if you put pants after anything, I think it's kind of funny. Like banana pants or
Yeah. Yeah, because
waffle
then it
pants or something.
gives the word a functional purpose, in which then you are immediately like, wait, what do a pair of waffle pants look like? Would they be edible waffle pants, or would they just be in the shape of waffle pants? Would they be textured like waffles? Would they come
Exactly.
with syrup? Like, I think like a good replacement curse word should break you out of your anger. Should make you all, everyone like reset and be like, what did you just say? Is my hope. But also
That's
sometimes
great.
when you're mad, you're just mad.
Yeah. No, it comes up. And, like curse words have power, they have those really strong consonant sounds. It's like,
Yes.
I'm gonna scan them in my
Yeah.
mind, but I think like the vowel sounds are short. So like a long vowel sound, as a lyricist, we think about this stuff. We're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are like strong syllables and things like that? Like long vowels, they're easy to rhyme and stuff, but the short vowels, they put the focus elsewhere. And so we have like these blended consonants that are really, the curse words are really, there's a lot of power, you know?
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
get that other level of power because they're taboo. Everyone says, "Oh, you can't say that." So that's
Yeah.
another secret level. So
That's
it's
right.
tricky to replace them, to find an appropriate replacement.
Next question. What's like one of your favorite activities to do with your son or like toy, anything like that?
Soccer.
Yeah. I'm wearing soccer. Yeah. Big soccer fan. Yep.
Yeah. What jersey you got on there?
I lived in Nashville for 18 years. So I've got a
Nice.
Nashville there MLS team. Mostly I gravitate towards either Liverpool or Germany's national team.
All right. Cool. I like Man City.
For how long?
About 3 years. Yep.
Come on.
Yeah.
Listen.
No, I don't watch a lot of TV and stuff. Like I literally
Yeah.
live in the woods and stuff. And so, but yeah, I definitely love Holland. I mean, come on. Like,
Yeah. I mean, he's
what a guy.
insane.
He's
It's
amazing.
ridiculous. I only hate Man City because of the season in which they got 100 points in the Premier League and Liverpool got like 97 or 99. And like both of them broke records that year, but Man City won because they broke it just a little bit more. Like, yeah, Kevin De Bruyne is phenomenal. Doku is phenomenal. Pep is phenomenal. Like, it's one of those teams where you watch them and you're like, you're just so damn good. It makes me mad. It's kind of how I feel.
It's amazing to watch these guys. They're just magicians. And soccer's changed so much since I was a kid, and, like just the footwork and even the lineups,
Yeah.
the way the teams line up. Like there's like, I talked to, you look at before the game and how the teams are lining up. You're like, whoa, like a 3-2-1-4, it's just like this thing, man. Like, so yeah, I think soccer's a great way to connect with, anybody really, but especially with boys. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good way it's a good time to chat. It's a good time to connect, where it's like, you could talk about different things. You're passing the ball, so it's like, we're gonna connect, pass back and forth. I'm gonna like give you a good pass, or sometimes we're like, oh, we're gonna put it in the air so we could trap the ball, so we can like work on stuff together and talk informally about stuff. It's a good time that my son and I talk, and then we go up and like do some one-on-ones.
That's cool.
And he tries to beat me, and we have a little thing where like we just go back and forth, and like as long as you keep beating the person, you have possession. And so we go back and forth, and and so it's really cool to grow up with a kid. And now my son's 15. He ran like a 6-minute something mile.
Dude.
Like he's faster than me. He's strong. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm really proud of him for like working on something like regularly and going back to it and working on improving. And it's a really beautiful way to stay connected with my son and also a bunch of his friends and stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then last question for you. What's like, if you had to think of like go-to parenting advice to give someone, like what would like your go-to sentiment advice be to tell someone?
Yeah. Well, I think with new dads, I would say kind of what you mentioned earlier with, you call it skin to skin. I've never, that's not, but before my son was born, a father said that to me. He said, take your shirt off and hold the baby on your chest, and he was like, moms get this contact all the time, just life and breastfeeding and stuff. Right. And so I think that was a huge experience for me,
Yeah.
Also, to be honest, like a little confusing, because the only time I'd really had skin to skin contact was in a romantic manner,
It's a different
now it's
intimacy. Yeah.
And so now it's like a very different kind of love.
Yeah.
But, so just feeling that closeness, I think that's really beautiful. So I definitely have passed that on to other
That's
dads. Cool. And then another one that comes to mind is, book is this from? I think it's from a book called Playful Parenting, which is a pretty cool book to look up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have it right. I haven't read it in a while, but the generalization is, boys need connection, girls need empowerment.
Cool. Yeah.
And I feel like that's something it's a give and take. I mean, it goes both ways. It's not just boys need this and girls need that. And
Yeah.
I think kids need connection and empowerment, and so, but it's a good way to look to kind of assess a child. Like when, with your own kids, you get real close look at them. But when I'm stepping into a teaching environment, like last week, 2 weeks ago, I was songwriting with 30 teenagers, and so different kids have different needs, and so some of them need like a little boost. And then some of them, and it typically tends to be the teenage boys, they just need a little bit of that a connection, like they already know like they can do something, so just giving them that connection, finding ways to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then last thing for you is just a moment for like self-promotion. So if we want to find your music, website, Instagram, anything like that.
Cool. Yeah. You can find me on the socials at Harmonica Pocket. And I have a website. And if you want to, if you're a songwriter and you want to, one thing I'm working on right now is I created a program for songwriters to help songwriters learn music theory and help them use it to write songs. And so I'm working with guitarists and ukulele players on a one-on-one basis. And I have a pretty deep curriculum. It's called Harmony Lab. And so if people want to, kind of explore that possibility, harmonicapocket.com/songs. And I'm really excited about that project. It's it's about like writing cool, creative, new work, and it's sparked a lot of new stuff in my own writing. So
that's awesome.
It's working for me.
That's cool. Sincerely, thank you for taking the time to do this. Thanks for sharing with me your thoughts on fatherhood and sharing your journey with me. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, thanks as well. Thanks for what you're doing, putting these voices out there, and appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's thanks for being one of them. Thanks for being part of it. It sincerely, it means a lot, and I take it very seriously.
Right on. Well, samesies, Devin. Nice to meet you.
Perfect. Nice to meet you too, Keith. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Imperfect Dads Podcast. And make sure to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. Music, editing, and production is all done by me. Make sure to tune in on Mondays and most Thursdays for new episodes. This podcast is part of the Never Efface Network. Make sure to go to nevereffacenetwork.com to learn more about them.